this whole Ethan Crumbley situation and what happened recently at Oxford High School. It's, well, it got me thinking. There's quite a bunch of myths that, well, the conservative party has been sharing in our society for the longest period of time that I've known were myths, but perhaps you didn't know were myths. And one of these myths is, well, the myth of the nuclear two-parent household and how there's no youth, no individuals, no people that develop in our society that come from nuclear, traditional, two-parent households. None of those individuals are the disturbed people in our society. None of those individuals are the troubled people in our society. Those people are immaculate. Those people are angelic. Those people are, well, they're what we all should aspire to be. We should all aspire to come from a traditional, nuclear, heterosexual, two-parent household. Now, Ethan Crumbley, the shooter at Oxford High School, came from such a thing. He had two parents. Two, I would imagine, loving parents. Perhaps not. I don't know how loving you can be to, well, go out on Black Friday and not buy your son, well, something meaningful, something thoughtful, but to buy him a gun, especially when you know that he's psychologically disturbed. I mean, they pretty much, if you want my opinion, the charges should be flipped. The parents are pretty much the ones who facilitated the serial murder and the massacre at Oxford High School. He didn't illegally purchase the gun. They purchased it for him. And they knew about how disturbed he was. Didn't get him any counseling. No. She said, yours truly, a concerned and law-abiding citizen, patriotic citizen, who's fed up with getting, pardon my French here, fucked in the ass, and would rather be grabbed by the pussy. This is Jennifer Crumbley, Ethan Crumbley's mother. Now, if you have that as a parent, as millions and millions of these disturbed and troubled teen boys do, you have women who, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, they are the warriors, and everyone else is evil. And anything that doesn't conform to their narrow, Neanderthal-like tendencies is from the devil. You know. I know they tell their children, don't watch this. This is Satan in operation. But you have to understand that 99.999% of everything is Satan with them. So the 0.0000001% is all the stuff that they believe in. Like Donald Trump being Jesus and all the rest of it. So it's kind of hard to, well, go against the grain, so to speak. So he had that as a mother. And his father, well, let's examine his father. He was the one that took him to the gun shop. They're both in the gun shop, looking at guns together. And this is a person who, well, makes drawings about killing people. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. the whole conservative myth, it's been shattered. You see, for years they've been saying that only troubled youth come from single parent households. It's those single mothers who are, well, fundamentally destabilizing and destroying the American society. And if youth were raised in a two-parent household with strong Christian values, they would never go astray. Even Crumbley is like the textbook definition of that. I think they got a little picture of the kid when he's 4, like in 5. They're definitely Christian. They're definitely patriotic because they said they're patriots. And they voted for Donald Trump. So all of those things off by themselves make you a patriotic, loyal American. If you have not done any of those things, you're not a patriot, you're a communist. So just by doing those things, they were already patriotic. And they were American. He had everything going for him. Although his classmate said that he never looked happy. Now, that's a huge red flag. If you always look like you're about ready to, well, just kill everyone, I would say maybe you shouldn't hang out with that person. Or maybe tell the person you're kind of giving off that vibe. Not saying that you are, but that's just the kind of vibe you're giving off. Like, you want to go for boba tea? Get to know some people in here. The classmate said he never talked to any other students in the whole class. That's kind of a red flag. I mean, these are things that a God-fearing Christian family would see, wouldn't they? Oh no, that's right. They don't believe in counseling or therapy. Those things are from Satan too. Now, conservatives, you gotta cut the bullshit out. You can't talk about single parent households and the inner city welfare queens doing their best to try to raise their children. And then if they go into a gang, it's black on black crime. But there's no talk in this case of white on white crime. He killed 2 individuals who I would imagine are white and 1 Asian woman. I mean, it's in a predominantly white area. And you know, you gotta think about this. Because I went and was like, hey, oh, wait a minute, I want to do some more clawing back here. Do I have more evidence to substantiate my claim? And well, wouldn't you know, I happen to have more evidence to substantiate this. Pretty much all school shooters, whether they be middle school, high school, or university or college, they're pretty much always male. And 8 out of 10 times, they're white men who identify as being white men. So, also another point is this. They almost all come from 2-parent households. So what is it about teenage and college age white men coming from 2-parent households that make them want to go to school and, well, kill their classmates? Nobody ever asks that question about white on white crime. But we hear all the time about gang members and gangbangers in the inner city. Why are they so violent? Well, some of us tell you why. We tell you it's because of poverty and lack of resources and mental health, which also, believe it or not, is kind of the same reason why people commit violence in the suburbs. Lack of resources, mental health. You see, mental health resources are sparse in the whole nation, from rural areas to suburban areas to inner cities. Back in the 1980s, we had another clown for president, another entertainer by the name of Ronald Reagan. And we used to have mental health facilities and treatment centers in this country. But by the time Reagan was done gutting the education and social programs in this country, we no longer had mental health facilities. So all of the individuals that had mental health issues were pretty much either confined to a hospital or they were allowed to go out onto the street, which then were, well, put back into prisons and jails. You can thank Ronald Reagan for doing that in the 1980s. He said it was morning in America again. And Donald Trump said he was going to make America great again. People got to wise up to this whole bullshit. Just because they say it's going to be morning in America and they're going to make America great, you got to look at what happens. America usually turns into a nightmare. So maybe somebody should say it's nighttime in America and we're going to work on making everybody great in America instead of making just a country, planet full of countries great. You got to think about those things. Anyway, Ethan Crumbley and so many of these school shooters, two-parent households, so conservatives cut out the mess about single mothers in the inner city ruining this country. No, what's ruining this country is no funding for mental health resources. Lack of access. I mean, if you're working, maybe your job covers it. What if you don't have health care or health coverage? The Los Angeles Times, along with the New York Times, just recently ran a story that said in Los Angeles last year, 1,500 homeless individuals died due to COVID out on the streets. They're finding bodies everywhere in Los Angeles. Because, well, in a capitalist country, the richest nation on the planet Earth, so they tell us, we have homeless people who couldn't find shelter or be provided with shelter, just die on our streets of COVID. Ethan Crumbley didn't get the help that he needed. And his parents made sure that not only did they make the situation not better, they made it far worse. Some of the takeaways and lessons we should come away from this is, well, don't buy your children guns. Try maybe buying them books, Oh, and by the way, also, don't try to blame this on the inner cities or Detroit. I see a lot of coverage trying to pin this on Detroit. Oxford is a community 42 miles outside of Detroit. They're going out of their way to mention it's near Detroit. It's near Detroit. Antioch to Kenosha is closer than Detroit to Oxford. I know, Michigan, DePaul. I know. I think the reason they're trying to do that is, well, to try to conflate this issue. To try to say it's not a suburban problem of gun violence. No, it's still just an inner city issue. It's a one-off thing. That's what they're trying to, well, reprogram you to think. Oxford, 42 miles away. Columbine was nowhere near Denver. Sandy Hook was nowhere near New York City. You gotta look at what they try to do each and every time. They just try to, well, say suburban violence doesn't happen. It's only in the inner cities. It's only in those cities that the liberals run. The Marxists. It's so violent in the cities. The suburbs, we're just wonderful people. We're welcoming. You go and you check out the crime stats in these suburbs. The percentage of crime in relation to the amount of population is much higher in vastly more suburban communities than it is in inner cities. You're talking about huge population centers like Los Angeles, and then you talk about, oh, there's a lot of smashing and grabbing going on. There's smashing and grabbing going on in suburban areas too. It's just happening at a much higher rate in the suburban areas. But there's fewer people. In inner cities, where there's more people, yeah, you're going to talk about 20 people to go into a Home Depot and smash and grab. That's one Home Depot in the city. The city might have like 500 Home Depots, if not more. In your one suburban community, you may have 2 Home Depots, and both of them get broken into all the time. Don't fuck with me. We gotta just stop this bullshit about these myths. That violence, gun violence, only occurs in inner cities. And only is done by, well, at-risk black youth. We gotta stop these myths that single-parent households destroyed America. When there's millions of insults who sit online with violent tendencies and act out on them like Kyle Rittenhouse did, like Ethan Crumbley did, like Nicholas Cruz did, like Dylan Roof did, like Alex Fields Jr. did. Stop lying. That's one thing we can start doing. Pretty much everything you always hear conservatives say is a con. That's why you can't spell conservative without con. They've been conning America, telling you that, well, gun violence isn't really an American problem. It's an inner city problem. Look at Chicago. Look at Chicago. Chicago is a city of millions of people. And you look at 1 or 2 neighborhoods and you say, that's Chicago. But then you say, look at America. Look at America. And you see all the red dots of where gun violence is happening in the last decade. And I guarantee you, it's not just in Chicago, New York City, Detroit, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle, Atlanta, Houston, Austin. It's all over. And you know where there's most red concentration? It's actually in the South, the Bible Belt. When you know, you guys have more gun violence in the South than any major city combined. But you know, you just don't report it. You know why you don't report it? Because, well, it's not newsworthy, I would imagine.